Okay, about 6 months ago, I was asked to do a 1 hour talk on incident command for folks in the construction industry. And this has morphed over the last 6 months from what I was originally requested. So we're going to kind of play with it a little bit. I've only got an hour. And any of you that have ever heard me talk in the past realize that I can't say hello in 20 minutes. So this is going to be tough. But here we go. We're going to talk incident commander. Incident command system, how you fit into it. A lot of people don't realize that just because you call 911 doesn't mean you give up your rights. Doesn't mean you're immediately turning that whole disaster over to the fire department or the police department. You have a definite role. And in this talk, during this section, we're going to talk about something called excuse me, unified command. Unified command is where you have more than one incident commander at the same time. And let's be honest, they need your input during an emergency. A little background on me so you know where I'm coming from on this. I have a degree in chemistry, another one in occupational health and safety. But for this topic, what's more important is for 28 years, I ran the County of San Diego's emergency response program down here. I've done 10,000 responses in all facets of everything out there. So yes, I've been definitely involved in all areas of incident command and response and so forth. So OSHA puts incident command under HAZWOPER under 29 CFR 1910-120 QIEs in there. Cal OSHA is identical to OSHA. So most of you were in the state of California. The HAZWOPER standard in California is General Industry Safety Order, Title 8, Section 5192, Q6IE, the identical prefixes afterwards. There is no difference in the standard between federal and state, other than the fact that the California makes more people have to comply to it. That's where the big difference comes in. We're going to talk a bit about single incident command, unified command, and I'll touch on national incident management system and how this works across the country. Under OSHA, OSHA requires that every incident have an incident commander. And it doesn't say who that has to be. It doesn't say anything else about it. OSHA also now mandates that incident command system be used. Prior to 2003, incident command was not the law of the land. Incident command was not used across the country. In fact, quite honestly, when the Twin Towers came down, New York did not use incident command. They had to be taught incident command after 9/11 occurred so that we could blend everybody together. California, we've used incident command since about 1984. That's when it was created and used out here in California for our wildfires to start with. So are you going to be the one in charge, or is there going to be somebody else?
Thank you. While you were sleeping, we were tracking breaking news overnight in the South Bay. A big update this morning on this story that we first started talking about last night during our 11 o'clock broadcast.
Yeah, and you can see in the screen behind us, there he is. He's okay, apparently. That's what they said. A construction worker had fallen into a trench. He's been rescued after being stuck down there for 6 hours. He was stuck in dirt, soft sand. They were worried it was going to cave in. NBC7's Nicole Gomez in the South Bay right now, tracking the story in National City to tell us what's the latest. Nicole?
Yes, so he was rescued about 3 hours ago, and already the construction crews are back at it here, continuing with this sewer project. We're on the corner of 30th and National City Boulevard, so you can just imagine the relief these construction crews are feeling that their colleague and co-worker is okay. The relief from family members who were here on scene last night, kind of holding their breath, waiting for him to get out of that hole, and certainly for all of the crews who worked for hours on end to get him out of this hole behind me.
Okay, I'm going to actually stop the video there because it goes into a lot of trench rescue considerations. But what I wanted to show you with the video was that we is that you can have an emergency where you drag in first responders anytime, anywhere. It could be simple. It could be something like somebody trapped in a collapsed trench. It could be a hydraulic line break on one of your machines that contaminates an area. It could be a fire. It could be a medical aid, whatever. You have a role in that incident. And the role that you have is not back up and run away. The role is it get involved, get in front, and deal directly with the incident commanders themselves. Your initial action on any emergency is very simple. You're told to sin. I know that sounds strange, but that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to follow safety, isolation, notification priorities. When the initial incident happens, whatever it happens to be, first thought you need to have, safety. You don't want to become involved in the incident in terms of another victim. You don't want to become involved. You don't want to become a problem. You don't want to rush in. The trench collapse. We could have really unstable sides. There could be sloughing going to occur. If you run up too close too quickly, you could end up throwing more dirt in on top of that victim that's down there. And he's already got if I let the video play, he had dirt up to his waist. So he was completely buried all the way up to his waist. Luckily, it didn't cave in above his stomach and chest to cut off his breathing. So he was just trapped that way. But they had to come in and loosen, get everything out of the way and work together. Do you guys have the equipment on scene to help the first responders? Is that something that you can normally do? Again, let's look at it. You've got backhoes, you've got, in this case, backhoes and track hoes and whatever else. You've got the ability to pull dirt, help them pull dirt out of the hole, but you don't want to do that until you're coordinating your efforts. So figure out who's there, who's lost, who's missing. There could have been two people in the hole, one that they can see and one that they couldn't. That changes the perspective on the whole incident. If I have a chemical spill, maybe they were digging that trench and chopped open a gas line buried in the trench or a water line, and now all of a sudden I've got flooding occurring. That changes the prospects. We're going to talk about safety plans toward the end of this class. So your first thought, safety. Make sure you're safe. Make sure all your personnel are safe around you. Second thing under safety, do a head count. One of the first things that a first responder, when they show up, is going to ask you, is everybody accounted for? This may sound really strange, but it happens more times than you can imagine. I show up on an engine. I walk up. And I've got John on a camera, so I'm going to just use John's name. So I show up and I walk up to John and say, John, where's the victim? Where's the trench? And you're going to tell me where things are. I'm then going to say, John, is everybody accounted for? I don't know. Do a head count. Head counts are really, really important. I don't know if I have one victim, two victims, three victims. I don't know if I have a secondary incident. You're directly involved in the incident as help, lead, and operating that incident for us. So do a head count. I have had multiple HAZMAT responses. Again, I ran a HAZMAT team. I've had multiple HAZMAT responses where I show up and we ask for a head count. Has everybody gone to their staging areas? And we're missing 2 or 3 people. Guess what happens during an incident when I'm missing people? I can't deal with the chemical spill. I can't deal with the actual fire or emergency. My first priority becomes safety, becomes finding those personnel. Then it turns out that those 2 or 3 personnel realize that, hey, work is shut down for right now. We're going to go down the street and get a sandwich. And they didn't tell John that they left. Well, you just cost valuable time by not accounting for your personnel. So be involved in the incident. Give me a head count. Make sure I know where everybody is. Control your people so I don't have to control them as the responders coming in to help you. Isolation. Isolate the incident. You may or may not have the right PPE to deal with it. In the case of a chemical spill, you may have had a chemical release and not have respirators, not have APRs, not have SCBAs, whatever that's going to be. So I need you to get back, get out of the area. And more important than that, I need you to keep everybody else back that doesn't have the proper training, resources, and capability to help. So this is all going down very, very quickly. This is all happening within the first couple of minutes. Third thing you're going to do, notifications. Call for help. You're going to dial 911. You're going to get on your cell phone. You're going to get on your radio. You're going to call for the backup that's going to be needed. And believe me, when you call and tell me what your problem is, you are going to get help. In fact, a lot of times you're going to get more help than you even wanted or thought you were going to get. The trench collapse, if I'd have played that video a little farther, they had fire departments from city of Chula Vista, city of National City, and the city of San Diego, and the urban search and rescue team came in with their full rescue rigs. The incident went on for about 7 hours. So there's lots of stuff coming in. Plus you've got fire, police, plus you've got police and everything. You're going to be needing food for people on scene. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to have to be done. Participate. Don't go hide in a corner. Stay there with the incident commander. We're going to talk more about that. So basic desired actions, safe approach. Don't rush in. Look at it, stand back, take a beat, give it 2 seconds. Your first instinct is, oh my God, John's trapped. We need to get into the in there and pull him out. You may need to wait a minute to make sure it's not going to make it worse. So safe approach for you and for people around you. Again, isolate and deny entry. Keep everybody else away so the problem doesn't get worse and we don't have more to deal with. Make your notifications. Do your companies, industries, agencies, etc. have checklists? Do you have any contact forms with you on the scene? Do you know who to call, where to call? Do you know where the nearest hospitals are going to be? Do you know that up front? And then what a lot of people don't realize is when this goes down, you're going to establish a temporary command post. So when this all approaches and you've dialed 911 and you've notified the fire department or police department to come in to give you some help, who's in charge right now?
Person on scene till someone with higher authority responsibility takes over.
You are exactly right. You're in charge completely. And then once fire or police show up, or possibly your supervisor shows up or whatever, do you give command to them? Do you turn over the incident, or do you maintain control? Here's a quick trick for you. And again, this is important to understand. So you've got a checklist, you've got your contact list, you've got your site safety plan, which we'll talk about shortly. So you've got all your information written. The fire captain shows up. By the way, on an incident, if a firefighter shows up with a white helmet, they're a chief. If they show up with a red helmet, they're a captain. Captains are in charge of the engines and the trucks. Chiefs are in charge of the whole groups. Odds are your first contact is going to be a captain showing up. Talk to the captain. Don't talk to the black hat firefighters or engineers or whatever. Look for the captain, because they're going to represent the fire department and police department as the incident commander in their cases. So you run up to them and you say, hi, this is Paulo. I'm in charge out here. This is what we've done. These are the actions we've taken. We've accounted for all of our personnel. turn over a copy of that to the fire captain and now say it this way. This is what we've done so far. This is what I would like you to do to help us. If you do a pass down and you give information to them that way, who's in charge? The fire captain or you? I passed it over and said, this is what I need you to do to help us. You've notified that captain essentially that you are maintaining control of your scene, but you want to work in consort with them. You want to essentially establish a unified command. If, on the other hand, you had changed that direction and you just said, this is what we've done so far, how can we help you? You just put them in command. Now, you are going to come across some parts of the state and some parts of the country where, quite honestly, when the first responder shows up, they're going to say, we got it from here, get out of my face. If you're in San Diego County, if you're in LA County, Orange County, we all believe in unified command. I need you. You have resources we don't have. You also need our resources that you don't have. We work better together. Yeah, again, a lot of people don't understand that. You do not have to give up authority and control of your incident. There will be times when you absolutely don't want to be in charge. I don't know what I'm doing. Get me the heck out of here. Make Eric show up and take over for me. Something like that. That works too. Anybody on this webinar ever had to deal with first responders showing up where they just tried to push you out of the way? Or did they try and put an arm around you and say, come with me, this is what we're going to do?
We did one time at our office actually, but they actually they took us in the room that we had the employee, and they started telling us, like, asking questions and just saying, like, to stay nearby in case they had questions in regards to the employee. So they were very, like, friendly and kind to guide us through the process, because, again, it was our first time having such an incident in the office. But they did keep that contact with us and keeping that command into what we needed to do to help them and what they needed to do, for us. And overall, it was like a good experience, because we didn't know what to do, and they guide us through the whole process. And it was nice.
Good. I'm glad it worked out the way it's supposed to. Let me toss this at you again. I've done a lot of disasters. Nobody should ever be comfortable in a major disaster and catastrophe. Unfortunately, my blood pressure goes down, my pulse rate evens out when I'm in a crisis. I have higher blood pressure and a faster pulse rate when I have to do paperwork. If you can get me away from the paperwork, let me handle an evacuation and a chemical spill, I'm in my element. I'm perfectly happy. But a lot of you never have had that happen. I have had people, we'll talk 911 in a second. I've had people call 911 and the dispatcher is asking questions. Where is it? What's the address? What happened? And they'll say, so who's calling? Because they need a name for callback. And the answer becomes mom. Well, the kid fell off a porch and broke their arm. So mom's calling for medical support. So they call 911 and the dispatcher says, who's calling? Mom. Mom, what's your name? Mom. No, mom, what's your real name? Oh, Lynn. Yeah, forgot. People will absolutely forget their own name. They'll forget who they work for. It's just the adrenaline rush. It does that to everybody. So a lot of times as responders, one of the first things we do, and Lynn gave a great example of that, is we'll try and segregate everybody from the chaos so they can calm down and provide good information both ways. We're used to working in a crisis. You guys aren't. I'll bet that construction site was absolutely, chaotic for a while until everybody realized that the guy in the trench was going to live. So when you're approaching when you say you have a chemical spill, this was supposed to be designed for chemical spills, and I kind of morphed it. So if you're approaching a spill site, you've got a release an abandoned, say you've got an abandoned drum shows up on your construction site. You didn't put it there. Somebody dumped it off. It looks like it might be leaking. You have no idea what's in it. You need to call for help. Maybe you're going to call your contractor for help. Maybe you're going to call the HAZMAT team, the CUPA in California, Certified Unified Program Agency, let them know there's been an abandonment. They're going to send some people to help you. Well, how do you handle that drum? Remember the whole thing: safe approach, isolate, deny entry, put up barriers, banner tape works. You don't have to. You can just absolutely, drop some cones down, or just make sure everybody knows, don't go past this point. Make your notifications. You called the CUPA, you're in charge, but now we need some other information. So my question, how close do you get to that abandoned drum? Do you walk up to it, rap on the side, see if it's full or empty? Any of you had HAZMAT classes in the past? Has your HAZMAT instructor ever told you about safe approach or how to decide how far away to get? Maybe you had an emergency response guidebook. Maybe you had training how to use this, and you went to the orange section and you looked at 150 feet, and maybe you had all that. But a lot of people don't have these handy. And we do a lot of training on how to use these. How would you have decided? What angle would you take? I usually hear from people, oh, if I can smell it, I'm too close. Yeah, you are. So I said, so how far away should you get? Oh yeah, I just get back till I feel comfortable. How many of you have heard of the term HAZMAT rule of thumb? The HAZMAT rule of thumb, and you can all do this. The HAZMAT rule of thumb goes like this. Take your arm, put it at arm's length, stick your thumb up in the air, close one eye, sight down your arm to your thumbnail. Well, with one eye closed, sight near your thumbnail. If I can cover the incident, the problem, whatever it is, with my thumbnail, I'm far enough away. If I can't, back up until you can. I have another one for you that'll help you out even more. And I really like this one. And don't make fun of me, because it's a real rule. I got the rule from my law enforcement people, from my cops. They use something called the HAZMAT rule of powder donut. And it goes like this. First thing you got to know, you've got to have a powder donut. It can't be a glaze or a cruller or a jelly filled or a bear claw. It has to be a powder donut. Now, it can be a white powder sugar donut. It can be a brown powder sugar donut. That part doesn't matter. It's just got to be a powder donut. What you do is you take the donut at arm's length. You stick it between your thumb and forefinger. You look through the hole in the donut. If I can see the entire incident through the hole in the donut, I'm far enough away. It's kind of like the inverse of the rule of thumb. One, you're covering it, one, you're seeing it. But the powder donut has more advantages. Second thing, once you've backed up, so you can see the entire incident, you got your distance. That's how far away to be. It works out pretty good. 150 feet for a drum, 300 feet for bigger incidents. So it all works out for you. But with the powder donut at arm's length, shake it. If I get sugar all over my shirt, I'm downwind, not upwind. When I shake that donut, I want the sugar to blow away from me, because if it's blowing at me, any gases or toxics being released are coming at me too. So move until the sugar blows away from you. Secondly, take the donut, turn it on its edge, set it on the ground, let it roll toward, if it rolls toward the incident, you're uphill. If it rolls towards you, you're downhill. And HAZMAT, just like shit, always rolls downhill. So you want it to go away from you. You don't want to be overtaken by the stuff. Third, if you're near water, and you need extra donuts for this one, take the donut, toss it in the water. If it floats toward the incident, you're upstream. If it floats towards you, you're downstream. So you always want to be upwind, uphill, and upstream of your incident. You don't want to become part of the problem for being in the wrong position. This will come in handy for you in a minute when we talk about dispatch info. And last but not least, the donut makes a perfectly good snack along the way. And I'm sure there's somebody here that is snickering, saying, but Nick, you just put that on the ground. Remember, 5-second rule. So when you're at the incident and you've decided uphill, upwind, and upstream, when you make notifications, when you call the fire department, when you call police and whatever, and you tell them, if there's an advantage, if you can give them an advantage, which way is the wind blowing? Maybe tell them it's best to come into the construction site from the Main Street gate, not from the First Avenue gate. Because you want to make sure which way, you don't want them driving into the wind. Hey, I tell you the fact, I'll never lie to you. In my career, I've been dispatched, shown up to scenes, driven up, found the incident commander, walked up to him, says, "Hi, Chief, I'm here to help. What can we do?" And he explains they have a spill or a release. And I said, "Okay, where is it?" And more than once, I've had the chief turn and point over to the street, says, "See the tire tracks? Those are yours. You drove through the spill when you got here." You know, that's really embarrassing. So if you can make it so they don't drive through the spill, they would really appreciate that. It goes a long way to gaining confidence. So what we're doing basically is we're establishing a hot zone. And yes, HAZMAT team, we still call it hot zone, warm zone, cold zone. I know the official terms are exclusion zone, contamination reduction zone, and support zone. But this is a basic protocol. Not too close. Nobody goes into the exclusion zone that's not trained and equipped and has the right PPE on. And always think about decon. Have some kind of decon to go on. Another webinar, we'll talk about decon actions and cleanups at a site. Incident command basically establishes roles, responsibilities, procedures. The National Incident Management System went into effect in 2003, and it made incident command the law of the land across the country. Anybody interested in formal training with certificates from FEMA are welcome to register for free training. You go to the independent study program. This is from FEMA. Shine on this QR code. It'll take you directly to their webpage. What you would do at that point is you would register and get an ID number, and the ID numbers are free. They're not going to they're not going to sell your login information to a telemarketer. It's just so they can track and send you information. So you log in, you get your ID number, and then in their independent study program, they have probably 200 free classes you could take. What I would suggest for anybody that's a supervisor, foreman, lead person, company manager, any of that stuff, is go ahead and go to the FEMA website, register, and there's at least 3 classes I would recommend you take. First one is ICS 100. ICS 100 is basic incident command. You've got an incident commander, an ops section, planning, logistics, and how that works. It'll explain to you. It's a 1-hour course. Gives you the quick overview, kind of what I'm going to do here in 5 minutes coming up. The second course you should do is ICS 200. ICS 200 takes that basic incident command format and expands it. So when you're watching the news and you're hearing about helicopter wings and ambulance division, medical divisions and stuff like that, this explains how all of those fit together. The third one I would suggest is ICS 700. ICS 700 is NIMS, the National Incident Management System. It's how ICS is deployed and used by the federal government to coordinate all 50 states. There's also an ICS 800, which talks about how FEMA works and how FEMA fits in for planning across the way. And then there's some others, some ICS 300s and 400s, which deal with EOCs, Emergency Operations Center working. But the basic ICS 100, 200 are great. Basic incident command system. You've got the incident commander. He or she is in charge. Again, it's not sexist. He or she will be in charge. Whoever is the incident commander. That's just how it works. Under the incident commander, they have staff that work for them. The incident commander has a public information officer, safety officer, and liaison officer. The PIO works with the media. The PIO takes information from the IC and gets it out to the general public. On your incidents, they would want you to provide them with a PIO if possible, if you're willing to talk to the media. They would want you to represent you and what the disaster is out there. They will probably also have a fire department PIO that will piggyback with your PIO to help out for information. But the public wants to know what's happening. You just saw the news broadcast. A safety officer looks at the big incident. They look at everything that's happening and they're looking for conflicts. Is one person doing something that's going to impact a different section of the incident? Is there going to be a direct conflict? Operations is the group that actually does the work. So you got somebody in charge, but the operations section actually does the work. Planning looks at the next phase, looks at what's going to happen 2 hours from now or 4 hours from now. They're looking at what we need so the information, so the whole incident can flow. The incident on the video was 6 hours long. They probably had a planning section looking at where they're going to get more resources. Planning will work closely with logistics. Logistics called out, helped contact with the incident commander, helped contact the other cities. The trench collapse was in National City. The logistics officer basically asked Chula Vista, San Diego, and the USAR team to come in to help. Finance, they're going to pay for it. Finance actually tracks staff time and personnel. Your department, your personnel can have a role in any of these positions. It may not be the lead role, it might be an assistant role, but you have a role. So we already covered this slide. So if you're the one that started off in charge, how do you stop being in charge? Paulo said, yeah, I find somebody else with more knowledge than I've got, and I give it to them. And that's true. What happens when the person shows up and they don't really have more knowledge, training, and resources than you do? Don't give it up. Maintain control. I've had dozens of times where I call for backup resources, and the backup that shows to help me really doesn't know what I know about the incident. So I say, look, you work for me. We'll just keep going. So you can get in there and play with it. NIMS, again, is a common operating system. Everybody knows incident commander is in charge. Everybody knows when you get training on ICS that safety officers don't run the incident. They look at the bigger picture. This was more of a class. I'd ask another question. Under this format, you've got command, public PIO, safety officer, liaison, ops. They can't. Think about it. How many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? If you've got a small incident, you don't need 12 people on a HAZMAT team. If you've got a small, how many people do I really need to clean up a 5-gallon spill? Things like that. So if the incident is small, you keep it small. If the incident is growing and getting larger, like you had 3 cities coming in on the last incident, you would in fact have a separate safety officer and incident commander. In fact, with that incident, I would have had 1 incident commander and probably 3 deputy ICs, because each city wants their own. So if it's a single incident command, there's one person in charge. If it's beyond that, if it's a unified command where you got more than one person involved, you're going to have more than one incident commander and possibly more than one safety officer. Unified command is used when there's more than one agency. By the way, the term agency fits with construction companies, fits with businesses. You are an agency. You are a division. You have an active role in any of your scenes. The problem comes in is wherever you put in that position. I mean, if Lynn shows up to be the IC for her company, stay there. Don't leave. One recommendation I would like to pass along to all of you. If you get on a scene and you establish a unified command system and your boss calls, you get this phone call while you're in the middle of this crisis, and the boss calls and says, the media's channel 2, channel 10, they're calling, wanting an interview from me. I need you to come down here immediately and give me a briefing. Do you leave? No, you do not. What you do is you ask the boss to come down there, or tell the boss you'll be glad to brief him on the phone, but you're a little busy right now protecting the company's image and issues. If for some reason your boss is just a pain and insists on you coming back to the office and briefing him so he can look important, he or she looks important on the media, what you do is you find somebody somebody there with you that can take over for you. Never leave the incident command post abandoned. Never walk away from that incident commander that's there to help you. Because as a responder, we're shy individuals. We're very shy and reserved. We always wait for you to come back and help us. And if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. But if you leave and we need to make a decision, I'm going to ask for your input. But if there's nobody to get input from, I'm going to make the call for you. You know, if I've shown up to your business and I need to get into a room to solve a chemical spill or do a rescue or something, and the door's locked. Anybody want to take a guess how long it takes a first responder to go through a locked door? Of course, we're going to wait and track you down to get the key and the passcodes and open the door. Now, if you've ever seen it on TV, I can go through a locked door in about 5 seconds. You'll have to fix the door when I'm done. It doesn't take that long. So, and then again, with unified command, if you have more than one incident commander working, they all have to agree. If they can't come to a decision, there's always one person in charge. The largest incident I ever worked on in my career involved 60 agencies that all had some level of incident command authority at the same time. We had one incident commander, 4 deputy ICs, and 300 people working under the incident. We never had a fight. Everything worked out fine, but it takes some practice to make that work. And you get large groups that look like this, where all the jurisdictions are talking nice and playing nice. Safety officers designated by the IC. And as we just talked about a minute ago, the safety officer can in fact be the IC at the same time. They don't have to give it up. So, but basically safety officer is going to enforce responder rules and observations. So they are their primary function, not to run the incident, but to make sure that people aren't going to get hurt working in the same things. Sometimes, think about a wildfire. They can light fires in one area to do a backburn. Well, if somebody's put a crew in the way, you just lit a backfire and burned up one of the crews that came in. So safety looks at that bigger picture. What's going to happen? What's going on? HAZMAT teams for spills and stuff, we fall under operations section. HAZMAT does not work directly for the incident commander. We actually work through the operations section. Now, most of the time the IC wants to talk to us directly, but still, officially, we work through operations.
I really want to be a firefighter so I could drive the fire SUV. Because I don't know what the fire SUV does when they get to the fire, like, yep, that's a fire. Confirmed, that is a fire. I guess we got to sit here and wait for the fire truck. So they can put some water on that, because this is just the SUV. Does not have a water hose. Those people going to burn up until the fire truck gets here. It's sad and unfortunate. What's on the radio? The dude in the fire SUV just directs people, which is pretty easy to do when you're dealing with fire. Like, hey guys, right there, where's that fire? I'd like for you to put water on it consistently until there's no more fire. And we want to take a similar approach right here. We want to put water on the fire until there's no more fire. They have meetings in the morning. Okay, guys, hypothetically, if it's fire right here, what we want to do is put water on the fire until there's no more fire. We're going to take the same strategy right here. We want to put water on the fire until there's no more fire. They had the same agenda for every meeting. They just white out the date.
Now, I show that video in a lot of my classes. Invariably, somebody in the class will accuse me of not liking firefighters. Everybody, including you realize there's a whole lot more to incident command than just put water on the fire. When you dial 911, they want to know location. They want to know name of the person reporting. I talked about this at the beginning. They want to know, they want a phone number. Please do not give them your switchboard number. Do not give them the office number. You're not going to be in there. You're going to be out in the field. So when I get this information, I'm calling you back and I need to know who I need to talk to you. So please give them a cell phone number. Give them the one you're carrying, because that's important. Because it's really annoying when I call a phone number back and I get a message that says, I'm sorry, we're closed for business right now. Call back during normal work days. Yeah, I know you're closed. We just evacuated your building. So I'm looking for Eric because he called it in, but he's not there anymore because he's out of the gate looking for me. What was spilled? If you don't know what was spilled, that's okay. Tell them you don't know what was spilled. That will work too. What's the problem? Trench collapse, chemical spill, a fire, heart attack, medical aid. Give us an idea. Also, how big is the spill? Oh, it's 5 gallons. Well, what's the real hazard? Well, it's 5 gallons leaking out of a 5,000 gallon above ground tank on the construction site. So what's the real potential hazard? A 5,000 gallon spill. That helps. Give us that. Wind direction, as we talked about earlier, really important. Have a checklist. Have some of this stuff written down for yourself, because these guys are going to show up. And when they show up, we eat information, we consume it. It's vital. You've got it, we need it. Be there, help us out. So ensure you've got site, you got planning, have operations, checklist, establish your command. If you need a form to use, I know Paulo mentioned that he has taken some ICS training classes on forms. This is the ICS 208 form. It's an incident action site safety plan. FEMA produces it. So you go to fema.gov/forms, and all these forms are there. It's a fillable PDF. This is a 2-page form. It takes me less than 5 minutes to complete one. Guess what goes in this big blank area? Draw me a picture. I need pictures.